Hi, this is Matt with LSAT Cracked. I'm going to resolve for you a debate that you may have heard if you've looked into any sort of like LSAT prep in the past. You might have heard, hey, should you look at the stimulus first, that big paragraph chunk at the top of a logic reasoning problem, or should you look at the question stem first? People seem very bitterly divided about this. I think there's a very simple answer. If you're scoring anything less than a 170, and the vast majority of people that are watching this video right now are scoring below that, I think it's quite clear. You should do the stimulus first. Once you reach a really advanced level, you can start cheating a little bit in a very strategic, glancing type manner at the question stem, and I'll explain that in a minute. But in the beginning, you should absolutely read the stimulus first. Here's why. Suppose a prep test company, and a lot of them do, tell you, read the question stem first so that you know what to do with the stimulus. The problem is, here's what happens. You're still learning. You still have a lot of different possible variables that could come in and make it possible for you to miss the problem. And now you read the question stem and it tells you which one of the following, if true, would most weaken the argument. Well, you don't even know. I guess you now know that what you're about to read is an argument, but you shouldn't really need to know that, because the main thing you should be doing anyway is reading, comprehending, and finding the conclusion anyway. So now you have this other thing floating in your head. Well, let me weaken the thing that I'm about to read. But you're reading it with a weakened filter on something that you don't even comprehend yet. Much better if you simply comprehend what you're being told, follow the three-part checklist we've talked about in earlier videos. Is it an argument or a set of facts? Make my reasonable inference, compare that to the argument's conclusion. Then, once you have a strong understanding of if it's an argument and is it a flawed argument, now your ability to weaken that argument in the question stem is going to make so much sense. You're going to have the contextual grounding to understand what that question stem really wants you to do. That's why I think you should read the stimulus first. Now, there's a subtle counterpoint that I have to acknowledge here. It is possible on a few questions here and there that they'll give you an argument, and it may, technically speaking, if you're really attuned and hyper-technical and hyper-analytical, you may actually notice a slight flaw in the argument. However, some question stems for arguments aren't really interested in you noticing why it's a bad argument. It might simply be asking you, what role did X play in the argument? So I will say that in a couple of cases, once you get very strong at this test, you may be reading an argument, and then if you think it's a good argument, or you're spotting some flaw, but it seems very nitpicking, very subtle, if you've done hundreds and hundreds of LSAT questions and you want to just quickly flick your eye down at the question stem to confirm, oh, okay, this is a role question, so I can just sort of move on. I don't need to spend any time evaluating. But by way of contrast, if it was a necessary assumption, sufficient assumption, strengthen, weaken, flaw, parallel flaw, principal question, any of those, now you know, well, there's definitely a flaw here. And if I haven't seen it, I need to spend another 15 seconds or so trying to find it. So with that subtle caveat of being able to quickly recognize a question stem, to sort of subtly tweak your time distribution within your argument evaluation framework, I'm okay with that. But for a beginning student to start all of their problems by reading the question stem first, that is absolutely a terrible idea.